Following the series of German grammar, today we will talk about German sentence structure, and this will be the last video of this topic. So let's dive into it. German has a pretty interesting sentence structure, and we will start simple. We will start with a sentence with only one verb, okay? For example, I want to say, I eat an apple, or I eat the apple. So just like in English, you will have your subject and then your verb and then the object at the end. So you can say, ich esse den Apfel. Pretty simple, right? But if you remember about German grammar, or if you have watched my video about the cases in German, we have here 4 cases: nominative, accusative, dative, and genitive. If you are not familiar with those concepts, maybe you need to take a look at my other video before you continue watching this video, because it might be a little confusing. Since we have the cases system in German, it is actually not necessary that you put the subject or the nominative case in front of the verb. So you can, for example, switch the object, the accusative case, with the subject. So you can actually say, den Apfel esse ich. It still means the same, I eat the apple, but now you put the emphasis on the direct object, the accusative case. So you say, the apple eat I eat the apple. This is not confusing in German thanks to the case system, because now we still have den Apfel and not der Apfel. So the thing or the one that is eating is not the apple, it's still me, it is still I, and the object that I eat is still the apple. So let's take a step further with 2 verbs, okay? So for example, you want to say, I have eaten an apple. So here there are 2 verbs, have and eaten. In German, the first verb, as always, takes the second position, and the rest of the verb will actually be put at the end, at the very end of the sentence. So it's not like in English, I have eaten, but it would be ich habe, and then comes the accusative, einen Apfel or den Apfel, and then the last part of the verb, gegessen. So literally it would translate to, I have the apple eaten. Pretty unusual. And if you have more information that you want to add to the sentence, for example, you want to say, I have eaten the apple at school yesterday, for example. So the first verb is on the second position, the last verb will be put at the very end, so all of the additional information will be squeezed between these 2 verbs. So it would be, ich habe den Apfel gestern in der Schule gegessen. I have the apple yesterday at school eaten. Interesting, right? And again, the first position doesn't always have to be the subject. So for example, I want to emphasize that I have eaten the apple yesterday at school. So you want to put yesterday in front. So the sentence would become, gestern habe ich den Apfel in der Schule gegessen. Or you want to put the emphasis on the location. In der Schule habe ich den Apfel gestern gegessen. Or again, the object. Den Apfel habe ich gestern in der Schule gegessen. Everything works, and everything still means the same thing. It's just the position can be changed as long as you don't move the verbs. So let's take a step further with 3 verbs, or 3? This sentence might be a stretch, but bear with me. Let's make a sentence like this. I will have eaten an apple tomorrow. So here you have will, have, eaten. I know in German you wouldn't say things like this, but if you say things like this, the first verb will always be on the second position, the 2 other verbs will be at the end, and they will be inverted. So you would say, ich werde den Apfel morgen gegessen haben. When you translate it word by word, it would be I will the apple tomorrow eaten have. So here you notice the second verb and the third verb at the end are inverted. So eaten have, not have eaten. All of the rules that I've mentioned before apply for main clause or Hauptsatz. In German, just like in any other languages, there are also subordinate clauses, which are Nebensatz. For example, you want to say, I eat the apple because I am hungry. This because I'm hungry, this part is the subordinate clause. And the rules for the sentence structure in German, of course, it's different from the main clause. So in subordinate clause, the verbs are always at the back, always at the end of the sentence. No second position. The verbs don't like second position in the Nebensatz, okay? They are all at the back and everything inverted. If you have two verbs, then they will be inverted. If you have three, then everything will be inverted. Let's take a look at some examples. Let's use the example that I've mentioned before. I eat an apple because I am hungry. Or literally, it would be more like I eat the apple because I have hunger. So the first part of the sentence is the main clause, so it functions just like before. Ich esse den Apfel, weil ich Hunger habe. Because I hunger have. This is the subordinate clause. And again, this subordinate clause can also move to the front. For example, just like in English, you can say, because I am hungry, I eat the apple. And because I'm hungry is in the front. So in German, weil ich Hunger habe, the same thing. But now this reasoning takes the first place, the first position of the main clause. Then comes the verb on the second position. Weil ich Hunger habe, esse ich den Apfel. You understand here that the reasoning, the subordinate clause here takes the first position of the main clause so that the verb will come right after the subordinate clause. So in the point of view of the subordinate clause, habe is at the last position, weil ich Hunger habe. But in the point of view of the main clause, weil ich Hunger habe, everything takes one position, which is the first position, and the verb of the main clause itself is esse here. So, weil ich Hunger habe, esse ich den Apfel. Now, subordinate clause with two verbs, everything will be at the end and inverted. For example, he knows that I have eaten the apple. Er weiß, dass ich den Apfel gegessen habe. He knows that I, the apple, eaten have. With three verbs, he knows that I will have eaten the apple tomorrow. Er weiß, dass ich den Apfel morgen gegessen haben werde. All of the three verbs will be inverted. There is an exception, of course. It's not interesting without exceptions, and this exception comes in the form of Ersatzinfinitiv. And this is the thing when you have a modal verb in your subordinate clause, they want to be at the end of the sentence. So instead of having all three verbs inverted at the end, it will be a jumble. So for example, you can have a sentence like, er weiß, dass ich den Apfel habe essen müssen. So instead of essen müssen habe, you take the habe to the front because müssen wants to be at the end. It's pretty complicated. If you are still new in learning German, you can forget it for now. But just remember, put it at the back of your mind that you will encounter this structure later on. There are, of course, other sentence structures where the verbs are not in the second position, but on the first position instead. For example, questions, which is also common in English. So for example, have you eaten? Hast du gegessen? Hast takes the first position, hast du gegessen? Imperative sentences, for example, take that, nimm das, or go away, geh weg, geh weg. And some conditional sentences, it's actually, we can also say that in English. For example, had I known about the situation, I would have done something else. So the first hätte is also in the first position because it's a conditional sentence. Also, if it's too complicated again, just put it somewhere. Some exceptions also happen in daily conversations. For example, German native speaker don't always put the verb at the end for subordinate sentence because when they are thinking about the sentence, sometimes in their mind, the sentence is not complete yet, but they just start talking. For example, I have eaten the apple because I was hungry. Ich habe den Apfel gegessen, weil ich habe Hunger. That can happen. So the structure here is actually wrong, but it happens quite a lot in daily conversation. It's not that it's wrong. I mean, it is wrong. If you write that down, it would be wrong. But in daily life, it happens pretty often, and people still understand. So yeah, you might want to keep that in mind. So if you are struggling with always remembering to put the verbs at the end, it doesn't matter, just say the sentence. It's better to just say weil ich habe Hunger instead of getting stuck there because you always were, oh, verb at the end, verb at the end. No. And there are sometimes also sentences like person A asking, kannst du das machen? Can you do that? And person B just say, kann ich? I can. So omitting the das and machen at the end, that's pretty normal too, which only happens in spoken German. So that's it. I think that's the end of this video about German sentence structure. I might miss a thing or two, so if you know more about this sentence structure, you can write them down in the comment section below. And yeah, that's also the end of the German grammar series. How do you like it so far? Is there any other thing about German grammar that I didn't cover in the series? Or any other German aspect that you want me to cover in the next videos? Don't hesitate to write them down in the comment section below. And I'll see you on the next videos. Bye! Had I known about that, I wouldn't have done that. Weird sentence.